Good evening, everyone. Welcome to my virtual guitar concert. My name is Travis Silvers. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to my virtual guitar concert. My name is Travis Silvers. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to my virtual guitar concert. My name is Technical difficulties. I'm the only one in the hall right now, so I will be performing the roles of sound man, cameraman, musician, you name it. So my apologies. I'm expecting, my actual sound man is much further than the 6 feet away that's being recommended. He's actually about 6 blocks away. So as I speak for a little bit right now, I'm expecting a text from him so to make sure everything's a go out there. So hopefully the camera and the video is all working well. We tested it out. If not, then he will let me know shortly and we'll make some minor adjustments and the show will go on. So before I start this evening, I would like to just say a few words. First of all, I know we have a lot of music appreciation students here, so I will be speaking about the pieces of music and also I will be telling you the titles and the composers. But for record-keeping purposes and for concert reviews, if you look down in the More section of the video, you should see the program listed there, and that goes for anyone who's interested in seeing what pieces I will be playing tonight. But before I started, I'd just like to say a few words and actually just throw out a few acknowledgments. I know these have been very unique and challenging times, thus you're all sitting in front of your computers, tablets, phones, as opposed to being here in the hall with us today. So I would just like to start out with some acknowledgments. First of all, I would just like to acknowledge our students. You know, it's been a very disruptive week here at school, and not just at school, but in everyone's lives. And I had the opportunity to meet with all of my students in virtual formats this week, and I was really taken and inspired by just their flexibility, their curiosity, their willingness to just kind of accept the new normal and just forge ahead with this semester. And so that takes a lot of courage. It also takes a lot of just possibility and a sense of possibility. I saw a lot of growth mindset, some humor, some good habits of mind this week from our students. So I just want to give you all a kudos. After interacting with all of you over the last few days through Zoom, I have no doubt that we'll be able to maintain a high quality of instruction and get through this semester just fine. Also on that note, I'd also like to throw out a little thank you to my colleagues, both in the music department and in the division in general. We've had some very productive Zoom meetings where everyone's been in attendance, and just a lot of collaboration, sharing of experience and ideas, people's fortes, kind of stepping into it and helping out where they can. And I really appreciate that, and I know that we all are doing that much better because of everybody's kind of collective energy. So I'd like to give a little shout out to the Arts, Humanities, Communications Office, Lori, Jackie, and Cassie. You guys are amazing. I don't know what would be happening right now if it weren't for you. So thank you, thank you, thank you. As always, thank you for everything that you do. I'd also like to just give a little shout out to our leadership here, Chancellor Young, Dr. Hoopus, Dr. Zeller, and Dean Sundquist. I personally just really appreciate the communication, the clarity, the calm that has been kind of passed down from you through emails, through check-ins, through just acknowledgments. And I think that's really set the tone for all we've accomplished collectively and for our ability to kind of just like move forward, best serve the students at this point. And it just makes me really proud and grateful to be part of this institution. So thank you all. Thank you. Thank you. The idea for this concert was actually kind of born out of the concern of some of my students in my music appreciation class. They all have to complete 3 concert reviews of live performances in the community. And the first question that came from most of them when they heard that we were going to be not only shutting down school, but all of the area institutions of arts and entertainment were going to also be closing. They were wondering, how can we see our concerts and do our concert reviews and complete that requirement for the class? So the idea of me doing this actually was born out of, I had this concert scheduled for a live show in here this evening, and so I thought, well, I'll just play the concert and you guys can watch online. And that conversation kind of grew with some of my colleagues who also needed some concert reviews and listening assignments for their classes. And then it just kind of grew into conversations with friends, with families, with old acquaintances, my old guitar professors, several people that I used to study guitar with as an undergraduate and a graduate student. And it just made me kind of really present to and have the reflection of how important music and the arts are to our society, how it binds and connects us so deeply. And I am just grateful for all of the people that I've learned music from, that I've played music with, that I've taught music to, and just to be part of that cycle makes me very, very grateful. So thank you. Tonight I'll be playing music that's primarily songs and dances. So I will speak a little bit about each piece before I play, and that will give some kind of context for the pieces and also for the music appreciation students. That can give you kind of some of the background information and help you discuss all the musical elements that we'll be hearing. I'm almost certain that this concert will be able to be published once I'm done live streaming. So if once that's up, I can send you guys the link to that, or you can just search for it on YouTube. So if you want to go back and revisit any of the pieces to help write your reviews, I'm pretty sure that they will be there for your re-listening. So let me just check in with my sound man here really quickly and see how we're doing. The sound is great. Super. The first pieces I will be performing this evening are Cancion y Danza by Antonio Ruiz-Pipo. Antonio Ruiz-Pipo was a Spanish composer, generally grouped in with the Spanish nationalists at the end of the 19th century. And this group of composers who were kind of identifying and establishing the kind of the national voice and sound of Spain have an interesting connection to our instrument. In looking back, as most of the groups of nationalist composers were doing at that time, a lot of the composers were looking backwards towards folk music and the folk music of each individual region and area and country in Europe. And as the Spaniards did that, they looked towards flamenco music, so very heavy rhythmic movement and a lot of guitar. So the Spanish nationalist composers were oftentimes imitating the guitar. The interesting element to that is they were actually pianists. None of them, the prominent Spanish nationalists, played the guitar. And in fact, not only were they pianists, but most of them, the majority of them, also went to France to study piano at the conservatory. And so not only they were pianists, but they were also heavily influenced by the French Impression style that was popular at the time. So you have this really interesting mix of music that's part guitar, part piano, part impressionism, and in Ruiz-Pipo's case, he actually was at the time kind of more of a neo-composer. So he was looking kind of back towards some of the Spanish court music of Spain, some of the vihuela. So in this Cancion y Danza, we'll actually hear some pieces that almost sound kind of Renaissance-y or early Baroque. So Cancion y Danza by Antonio Ruiz-Pipo. The next piece I'll be performing is Saudade No. 3 by Roland Dyens. It actually has 4 sections. It's kind of a l'attacca. You hear it as one piece, but there are 4 separate sections notated in the score: Rituel, Danse, Fete, et Finale. And sorry, I thought I turned that on airplane. My sound man. Roland Dyens was a French composer, guitarist, arranger, a towering figure in the modern classical guitar world until his passing in November of 2017. This is a pretty typical piece of Dyens. It's very frenetic, very active, lots of different influences. In this piece, we'll hear an introduction, the ritual, that's very kind of improvisational, has a lot of just kind of angular ideas and approach. There's a little bit of like American popular music. We'll hear some bends and some slides similar to like a blues guitarist. The dance has this, and the saudade itself refers to a specific rhythm where we're in 2/4, 1, 2, 1, 2, and then we divide those into 16th notes. So in traditional music, we hear 1E and a 2E and a 1E and a 2E and we hear those accents on the beats. But in this kind of South American rhythmic dance style, we'll hear groupings of 3 and 3/2. So we'll go 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2. So we'll hear this kind of syncopated ostinato figure almost in the bass. And that'll sound like this. We'll hear that over and over throughout the piece, kind of accompanying a lot of the melodic ideas. Roland Dyens, Saudade No. 3. The next set of pieces I'll be playing are by the South American composer Luis Bonfa. Luis Bonfa was one of the figures in the Bossa Nova movement, and he, along with a couple other composers, were kind of the first and foremost composers in that emerging genre in South America, mixing Latin rhythms and kind of contemporary jazz vocabulary and forms. So the three pieces I'll be playing from Bonfa are Manha de Carnaval, which is from the movie Black Orpheus, which is a contemporization of the Greek mythological tale of Orpheus and Eurydice. So this Manha de Carnaval is kind of the theme of this motion picture, and it appears in kind of several variations and in several places throughout the movie. I decided in this version to take an existing arrangement of the kind of the beginning section, which is in E minor, by Baden-Powell. So I took his arrangement, which is very lyrical, has like mostly arpeggiated accompaniment, and it's just very like, shows kind of the more melodic and expressive side of Bossa. And then I decided in the A minor section that I would actually kind of contrast a little bit and show a little bit more of the rhythmic side and some of the syncopation and more of the standard Bossa rhythm. So I did the arrangement of the A side, so this is kind of a Frankenstein arrangement of Manha de Carnaval. The second piece, Tenderly, which is generally known as a jazz standard, was written in 1946 by Walter Gross, and interestingly enough, kind of fitting into the theme of song and dances, it was originally written as a 3/4 waltz, and the first few recordings of the piece in 1946 and 47 they have the 3/4 meter, and it has a much stronger waltz characteristic. The first kind of American and mainstream recording that we know is Sarah Vaughan, and her version kind of set the standard. This piece became just a standard in the jazz repertoire. It was recorded by Duke Ellington, by Nat King Cole, Louis Armstrong, and Ella Fitzgerald have a beautiful rendition of it. It's a really great tune. This version is a transcription of a live performance that Bonfa gave in Rio in 1959. And then I'll end this little set with a piece, Sambalero, which is a just kind of short and joyful piece in A major. This is another well-known work of Bonfa's, and it's actually the first track off of Jobim and Stan Getz's kind of groundbreaking album that they released in 1962. So even those composers were promoting and performing each other's works, Bonfa, João Gilberto, and Antonio Jobim. So this is Manha de Carnaval, then Tenderly, and then Sambalero. The Usher Waltz by Nikita Koshkin. Back to dances. This is a piece of music written by Nikita Koshkin in 1984, probably his most well-known and definitely his most played work. This is a programmatic piece written after Edgar Allan Poe's The Fall of the House of Usher. In that story, you have the main character who's actually a narrator being summoned to kind of an ancient castle that's kind of in a state of ruin and dilapidation. and by a childhood friend who is the last of the royal lineage of the Ushers. And in this story, basically what's happening is the Roderick Usher is kind of slowly descending into a madness, and also because he's the last of this lineage, he and his sister are the last of the royal lineage. And his sister falls into these states of catatonic, and they're not sure why she's doing this and what's going on with her. And about halfway through the story, she falls into such a state that they think that she has passed, and they put her in the mausoleum in the basement. At the apex of the story, you have this wild storm that's occurring outside, and wind and rain, and everything's being blown to and fro. And at the moment of the kind of greatest part of the storm, door flies open, and his sister comes in the room and falls upon Roderick, whereas they both kind of die of shock. And our narrator runs out of the building, and as soon as he gets outside, he turns and he sees the entire house kind of splitting in two and falling into ruin on the grounds. So the fall of the House of the Usher in the story is both alludes to the end of the lineage and the end of the house itself. In the story, there are several references to Roderick Usher having this heightened acuity and hypersensitivity to sound, to light, to taste. And so one of the few things that he takes solace in is playing his guitar. And Poe mentions that these wild improvisations on themes of Weber and waltz-like improvisations. So I believe that Koshkin was writing kind of twofold here. He's both showing the programmatic and dramatic arc of the story, but also kind of sharing what some of those improvisations coming from Roderick Usher's study might have sounded like. Nikita Koshkin, Fall Usher Waltz. The last set of pieces that I'll be playing this evening, or actually, this is the first time I've ever played them in front of people before. This is something that I would have aired out in my classes over the last week, but since there hasn't been any, this will be the first time that I've ever performed these pieces. I'm actually really excited to play these pieces. These are really, really meaningful pieces to me, and I'll explain that in just a moment. As soon as I get this. There you go, good. So, 4 Greek images by Kyriakos Tzortzinakis. These are pieces of music that go back to when I first started my very serious study of classical guitar at Western Washington University. And while I was attending school there, I also worked in the music library. And my guitar professor at the time, David Feingold, really encouraged us to listen to a lot of guitarists, listen to a lot of guitar music, look through the scores, do some score listening. And so since I was in the library already quite often because I worked there, I took him up on his suggestion. And there was a painting at the time that most of us are familiar with, Picasso's Blue Guitarist. The painting where you have a guitarist that's he can either be lying on his side down with the guitar, or he can turn the painting the other way, and he's kind of sitting with the guitar in between his legs. And that, just the aesthetic and the mood of that poster at the time, painting at the time, was very intriguing to me. And so I found out that Michael Tippett had written a piece of music after the painting, also called The Blue Guitarist. So I was curious to what that sounded like, and we had a recording of that in our library by a Greek guitarist. Her name was Lefsia Kotsia. And so in listening to this recording of the Blue Guitarist, I also came across these pieces, 4 Greek images. And so I was always these are very short kind of character pieces, and although they technically don't fit into the song and dance theme of the program, I kind of see these 4 small Greek programmatic pieces as maybe both songs and dances, or a couple of the movements are songs and a couple of the movements are dances. So I was always enamored with these pieces, and I transcribed a movement. The second movement always gave me a hard time, and as a young guitarist and musician, I didn't really know why, and now I know because it slips back and forth between 2/4, 4/4, and 7/8, and so trying to transcribe that was always very difficult for me. So several times in my academic career, these pieces would kind of pop up, and I would get curious about them and search for, when I was first an undergraduate, the internet was kind of in its infancy, and there wasn't the ability to search kind of far and wide really easily. And so I couldn't locate them as an undergraduate. And then as a graduate student at the University of Idaho, I thought, I can find those now that the internet is so prevalent. And so I searched, and to no avail. I could never find the music for them. So just recently, last fall, I was kind of in some kind of YouTube wormhole, as we often get, and I came across this Greek television broadcast that was on YouTube that was recorded in the late 70s, early 80s, by this Greek guitarist named Grigorios Kostas, and he was playing a live version of these 4 pieces, and it's the first time I'd heard them in quite some time. I was excited to see those, and then I thought, now that the internet is so much more prevalent, I could probably find this on my watch, or my phone, or my tablet, or my laptop, or my desktop. Take a pick. So I started looking for them, and once again, there was no publication. I couldn't find any evidence of the sheet music of these. But I did come across Grigorios' website, and so he had a contact us form on there. So I sent him an email through his website, just saying, kind of explaining in a very abbreviated version this story. Just saying, hey, I've always loved these pieces, and I've always wanted to play them. Could you point me in the right direction of where I might find the score? And about an hour later, he had returned my email from his personal email address, and he had sent me the composer's manuscript of these pieces, and also some of his own works that he has composed, and with a very nice note. And he just said, I'm glad somebody's still interested in these pieces and wants to play them. If you're interested in these, here's some works that I've composed that you also might find interesting. It was an amazing feeling to just have the response and to actually have these. And since they didn't fit into my song and dance program that I was starting to practice at the time, I kind of set them aside. But the pull was too great, and so I started kind of looking at them, and they're just short, beautiful, fun pieces. I'm very excited to share them with you today. This is about 20 years in the making. So 4 Greek images by Kyriakos Tzortzinakis. thank you all so much for coming this evening. It means a lot to me. I saw some numbers up on when I hit go live, and there was quite a bit more people than I was expecting. So that means so much. Thank you for just supporting the MJC music department. Thank you for supporting the guitar activities here, for me, just for supporting each other. You know, I know that these are very challenging, unique times, and I kind of think like our greatest asset whenever there's strife and struggle is each other. And so just be kind to yourselves, be kind to each other, help each other out when we can, ask for help when we need it.